then, well, we'll kick off. So first off, really, so those who aren't familiar, when I do AGMs, I tend to do them fairly quickly and informally. They are not great, long, convoluted affairs, as some organisations tend to love to do. And these tend to be fairly quick and brief, so we can then actually get into a bit of a natter about what is it that's of interest to you, what are your priorities for the coming year, what are the speakers you're interested in, or any particular thoughts you've got about what we need to do. So first off, really, in terms of, we've had another busy year, we had another run of events that have been quite varied in nature. We had a panel debate, a careers in data session early on. We had an in conversation with Alison Holt, the session with that was about data governance in action, and because she was in Papua New Guinea, we did it slightly later than normal, but it still was ridiculously early o'clock in the morning for her. So yeah, that was an interesting one. Ian Wallace was talking about data strategy with his publication of his recent data strategy book. Uno Smith, who we've had before as a speaker, presented a very interesting session on fast data fast, dealing with real-time information arriving at speed. Then we had Rowena and Gary, or unfortunately Rowena was poorly, so it was Gary and I doing a whose legitimate interest is it anyway role play exercise there, just to try and test out a few things there and get thinking about what is appropriate for legitimate interest. Our virtual conference this year was, as usual, run with Dharma UK, and this year's topic was recognising it's 10 years since the ODI was formed. Got a theme of open data comes of age. And so we had a really good range of speakers there, some really good, excellent presentations. So Professor Sir Nigel Shadbolt, Claire Griffiths, Chloe Davis, Richard Dobson, John Murray, Andy Mabbott, Anita Payne, Alex Luck, and Catherine Corrick. And then we ended up with a bit of a panel debate at the end. So all in all, there was a lot of good quality content. And then finally, on the 6th of July, this was actually organised by BCS London North and London Central branches, but we sort of jointly sponsored it and I chaired it, where Ulf Matson was talking about data confidentiality and integrity. So those are the events we've run so far this year. All of those have been recorded, and the recordings are available on the BCS member group's YouTube channel. So if you do want to catch up on those, you can do so relatively easily. Unless you've got any questions about the events, I'll skip on a little bit. So successes for the year. I think the virtual conference, again, we've actually got a format that works. We've got a sort of a way of approaching it that seems to work well. So we managed to get 9 presentations and 1 panel debate spread over the week. And that, I think, was a big success. Something else that you may not have spotted, but one of the things that I supported was some work that the BCS did alongside the Royal Academy of Engineering, the Royal Statistical Society, the Institute for Maths. I think there's about 7 or 8 professional bodies which have come together under a bracket or title of the Alliance for Data Science Professionals. And this is really trying to come up with recognising qualifications and capability in the data science field, because each of the professions have got their own way of doing it, and everybody's got their own view of what data science actually is. So that launch was earlier this year and was a culmination of sort of almost 2 years of the work of getting things in place. We'll also continue our transformation to virtual working. So by having webinars and virtual meetings, it does make it easier to collaborate and for people to participate wherever they happen to be in the world, which is always useful. And finally, we've got a reasonably active committee, and that's been helpful in terms of making sure that we've been able to do some of the things that we wanted to do. COVID-19, I think the ongoing impacts of COVID have continued to cause a bit of a challenge. And I think the other thing is that, sorry, my ongoing cough. Now that more things are being done virtually, we actually have got the sort of everybody's doing virtual events. And so there's actually quite a bit of competition to sort of get people's time, get people to attend things. So it does actually make it quite difficult sometimes to get the engagement we would like when we're running virtual meetings. And also just trying to keep the engagement of the committee, getting input there as people have got real life commitments come up, health issues, work issues, conflicting projects, conflicting meetings, all these coming together means that sort of whilst the committee is reasonably active, there's still ongoing challenges there. The Treasurer's report bit is actually fairly brief. Basically, because we've been running things virtually, we've had no expenditure and we've had no income. So that's it. not a lot more to say there, really. It does just show that in terms of what we're doing, it works a slightly different to the way we used to. And so really, sort of for me, a bit of a sort of a thank you, really. So some of you may not be aware, but I've been chair of the Data Management Specialist Group for 12 years now, and decided that it was actually time to stand down and let somebody else take the helm and bring some new ideas, enthusiasm, new ways of doing things. So actually I'm standing down at this committee, at this AGM rather. But over those 12 years, we've actually run many, many events and webinars, initially all physical, now all virtual. And we've actually developed a good reputation for the way we do things. And we've got a number of people who come back quite regularly who are interested in the events that we put on, and the recordings continue to get views on YouTube. That transition going from all physical events to all virtual events, we've gone through that, and again we think we've now got an approach that works. We're fairly slick and practiced at what we do, so I think that works quite well. There's been a useful transition there. Over the years, in fact I'm not sure when it started, the annual joint event with Dharma UK always used to be an all-day physical event, and with the arrival of COVID, that has now been converted to run as a virtual conference, which actually I think runs as a far more successful format. Excuse me, far more successful format there, running that way. So we've also been looking at how we sort of been in the middle of the way BCS is sort of working, in terms of there have been various initiatives to change the member offering, to change how people collaborate across different committees, and we've been in the middle of some of that, helping test out various things, being on the communications working group, that kind of thing. One of the things I also did was represented both the BCS and Data Management Specialist Group in some work about 4 years ago now, to develop a couple of standards based on big data. So that ended up being BS 10102 Part 1 and 10102 Part 2. So they look at sort of the approaches to management of data in a big data context, which again is something that we've been working on over a number of years. So all of this over the years actually has not been a solo effort, although I've put in a fair amount, I've put in over the years and a fair amount of time to this. I'm actually indebted to a lot of the committee who've supported me over the years, two of whom actually stand out for specific mentions. So Glenn Val has been our event secretary for about the last 5 years, and he's provided a very, very professional and efficient service. And he also is standing down at this time because he's got changes in his life and what have you, which means he's now actually wanting to devote his time to other things. But prior to Glenn, there was also Keith Gordon, who was secretary for many, many years, who was the mainstay of what the Data Management Specialist Group did, and actually is a real human dynamo. How he managed to juggle as many plates as he did was quite an achievement. And finally, really, in terms of the member groups team at Swindon, particularly Mandy, have been invaluable for sort of keeping us on the straight and narrow, getting all the admin sorted out, and making sure that it works the way we expect it to. So now that I'm standing down, fortunately, I've now got somebody who's willing to take up the reins, and that's Ed Evans. So very pleased to hand over the reins to Ed. Ed's been an active committee member for a number of years, and he's agreed to take over the role as chair. But also I'm going to still be around on the committee, providing input and thoughts going into the future. But finally, also thank you to you, for those of you who've turned up to our events. There's a number of names that are sort of on the meeting here who are familiar names we've seen a number of times. So thank you for coming back. It's good to see you. So now really we get through to thinking through about committee for next year. So at the moment, this is the proposed shape of the committee. We've got 3 new people standing for the committee, and that's Barbara Bell, Nick Granger and John Ratcliffe. But we are also very keen for any other volunteers. So if you're interested in getting more engaged, interested in getting more involved, by all means get in contact with Ed, and we can sort things out. What we do, and I think Ed will probably continue this, certainly over the last years, I've always tried to tailor what we do to the amount of time and energy that people have got available to do it. So rather than trying to be over ambitious and people are getting stressed out by being on the committee, this is much more about trying to make sure we can actually tailor things to what people do. So what we now need to do is we actually now need to have a bit of an election, really. So if you are not a BCS member, then you can't take part. Basically, what we'd like to propose is that the committee is voted on block as it stands. At the moment, the event secretary, we need to have a bit of a discussion to see who will take over from Glenn. That's not formally finalised yet, but I'm sure we can get that sorted out. Ed, I don't know if you want to add any comments at all from your perspective.
Yeah, only to say, you know, thanks very much, Julian, for all your hard work. It's really difficult big shoes to follow there. And I echo all the work that's been done on the events and the fantastic value that's been generated in getting experts from the field to come and talk to us. And what I hope to do, if I can, is to follow on and build upon that. So I noticed that there's a couple of people interested in volunteering for the committee. Be great to hear from you. We'll find a way to chat to you one-to-one, or I will following the meeting. We have a number of people already, and what I wanted to do was to think about how we engage membership more anyway, to try and make sure that people are more connected to the organization, because I don't know if anybody on the call has got any feedback on some of the events that have been going on. Anybody want to say anything about what they've enjoyed and what they'd like to see? There'll be plenty of time for discussion on that anyway, because that's what I wanted to do, was to set up the next committee meeting to think about how we approach next year, so 2023.
Hi, Ed.
Yeah, go ahead.
I just wanted to ask, so your question was involving more people. Does that mean more people to attend the events that we do, or more people for the committee?
Well, I think the committee, so long as we've got an active committee, then we don't need everybody to be involved in the committee. In terms of the events, what I really mean is people will come to along to an event if it's a topic of interest, but it's just that engagement in terms of suggesting topics and maybe bringing in speakers from their own domain or things that they would be interested in. So, you know, maybe not as necessarily as a committee, but as a member, being able to make suggestions that we can see come to fruition.
A possible suggestion, is there I don't know whether it's a forum board or something where we can keep a running list of speakers, so it's not a matter of the next event's coming up, we need a speaker. Maybe we have a list of 20 people and we just keep adding to it and checking off that list as time goes on, so that way it's never that we are running out or last minute looking for speakers, but we already have the list. So we just keep going through the list as we keep going.
Yeah, I mean, that's a good suggestion. I guess that, and Julian, chip in here, you know, we tend to have a kind of reasonably well worked out schedule of speakers, you know, going forward. And so, and the way that it's been done in the past, and I think it's a good way to do it, is to think of the topics first and think of the areas of interest. I mean, data management is such a growing and evolving topic. But yeah, we'll keep a roster of who we've got lined up, so that people can see where the gaps are or where the areas of interest are. And this is another thing about engaging members, is it has to be clear to members where they can go in and see that information very easily. Sorry, Julian,
Yeah, no, I was going to say that because we use Basecamp as a tool to help support the committee and what the committee does. So that's where we've been sharing information about ideas for speakers. But I think also sometimes you get to the point where you've exhausted your list of contacts. You maybe haven't bumped into anybody new who might be interesting, and so as a potential speaker. So that's why sometimes it's always useful to have extra people on the committee who can bounce ideas around, who can actually have a view of, well, I went to an event last week and so-and-so spoke, and it was relevant and really interesting. Maybe we can get them to speak at an event in the future. And that just helps generate some of the interest, helps generate what we're trying to do. So yeah, so that's really, the more people we get involved, the easier it is to reach out to other people and get them in as speakers, and also to look at what other events that we do.
Yeah, thanks, Julian. Just to check on, you asked me to say something then, and I went off on talking about what's going to happen for next year. But did we formalise do we need to formalise a vote on the committee?
We didn't, but I think if people can use, if you're a BCS member, if you can use the voting buttons to click, I think in Zoom you've got a yes, no option. So if you're happy with the committee as proposed, if you can click on the yes button under reactions, that will be appreciated, because we can then start to see that. So yeah, I can see one already. So we just start, yeah, do that. And a thumbs up from Barbara, good. Yeah, and by all means, if anybody's got any concerns, any objections, by all means, if in case we miss it, just unmute yourself and raise an observation there, but hopefully not, because these things generally aren't a problem. No, that's good. So thank you there from all the ones that I can see. There are thumbs up across the board, which is good to see. So yeah, so we'll take that as read, and we can work through on that now. So Ed, so I'll just slip onto the next slide. So you're talking about next year.
Yeah.
I don't know if you've got anything else you want to add into that, and I'll just got a comment I need to put into Mike on the chat. So I'll be quietly doing that in the background.
Yeah. Okay. Well, I'd like to talk a little bit about how we might be able to evolve going forwards. Like I said, the foundation of getting great speakers in and providing really topical content is a strong one. It's a strong foundation, and there's a lot of, as Julian mentioned, a lot of material on YouTube. Now, I haven't spent a lot of time looking at how many people look at those things, or even what our total membership is, which is what I want to try to do. But the kind of there's about 4 or 5 areas that I want to try to build on, really. One is connecting more with a wider membership. We have relied a lot on the committee for all the ideas, and that's fine. That's why people are involved in the committee. But you know, people may want to suggest something without necessarily coming along to all the meetings, and want to get involved for a particular event. And so I think we can do more to have sort of more feedback, if you like, and contact with our members. So we do have a LinkedIn page. I would urge everybody to be on that if you're not sort of a member of the LinkedIn page so far. I'd also urge individuals, members, to make sure that they were connected either to myself or other members of the committee. LinkedIn is a fantastic way to do that as well, so that when we're planning or proposing an idea for the coming year, then you've got a kind of an easy one-to-one conversation where you can suggest ideas, you know, without the full sort of glow of everybody looking at it and you know, and asking yourself whether that's a valid suggestion. Just one-to-one conversations can work like that very well. So, and a great way to gather feedback as well. So LinkedIn, we have a Twitter handle as well, so we can use that to gather feedback. So make personal contacts. As far as the events are concerned, there's a couple of things. So we need topics. There are so many great growing areas in data and data management that there's kind of almost too many topics, but we want to make sure that these are topics that people are interested in, that actually give you some insight, perhaps beyond where you're working day to day, but into the kind of next thing or associated aspects of data. So we've had topics in terms of big data, in terms of 5G, in terms of data in the health service, in specific areas, and of course the joint seminar we had on open data, which is close to my heart, being a sort of an employee of the Open Data Institute. That open and shared data is such a great wide topic, and there's lots to explore there. But any other ideas are always welcome. And like I said, in our next meeting in November, we'll be putting the schedule together, or starting the schedule. Is probably the best way to describe it for 2023. It's a big organisation, the BCS, and we have a lot of different groups, and probably you, like me, are maybe connected to more than one group, whether that's a local based one, a regional group, or whether it's one of the other specialist topic areas. And there's should be a lot of opportunity, I think, to cross-fertilize between the groups and have joint events. I mentioned health data before. Well, there are many health groups within the BCS as well. So what I'm looking to explore, to see whether by creating content or a seminar within the BCS looking at data, if that data is specific to a particular industry or a particular area, then let's do a joint meeting with those guys and see if we can sort of leverage our experts even more. The other idea that I want to share, and I'll get the committee working on this in November again, is to look back at our video content and see whether we can do a better job as a data management group of providing some kind of index or subject way in to find those find those videos, because I'm conscious of the fact there's an awful lot of brilliant content there, and perhaps we need a bit of a steer to find out where the best material is, so that people can go straight in and look for a particular topic and find the appropriate video. So that's something that we can look at in the committee. I'm sure we've got a lot of expertise to help.
Yeah, I think the grand total of videos we've got up there is probably about 100 now. So there's actually quite a lot there. And you're right, there probably needs to be a way of navigating to find the good stuff better.
Yeah, and it'd be really helpful to capture all that knowledge, wouldn't it? We're going to have another conference, shared conference with Dharma. Again, that was a great event. So again, many of you will also be members of the Dharma group, and so we need to build on that too. And then my last thought, and I want to sort of run this past people here, is whether we need to tweak the name of the organization a little bit, because I mentioned already several times, I suppose, that we've gone beyond data management, and whether that covers it. I'm not sure how easy or difficult that is, Julian. Is it built in stone that the data management specialist group? Could we make that more inclusive and just call ourselves data, do you think?
I think the name is something where, if there was a strong preference to change, we could probably initiate that change. I think we need to be very careful, though, partly because of the coverage of other groups, but also the fact that if we're not careful, we might actually lose people who are familiar with us as we stand. And if we've got a new name, then you've got all the issues around rebranding. So there's a whole range of challenges there, really.
So I thought I'd throw that out there. Not saying it's a simple thing to do, but so those are my ideas, or the things I want to bring to the committee, and not just the committee. I see the committee as kind of enacting what we decide, but the actual feed into that should come from the whole membership, and the whole membership should feel like they're connected to the committee. Whether you're, you don't need to necessarily come to all the committee meetings to do that. So I'll be looking for ways to and ideas of ways to do that. So the next committee meeting, just to let people know, will be I'm going to set it up for the 1st of November. We were planning to have one this evening, but unfortunately, events have come about that can't go ahead. So I'll make it the 1st of November, and I'll be sharing an agenda for that, and I'll put that agenda onto the LinkedIn page too, so people can make a contribution even if you're not attending the meeting. Any thoughts or questions?
Nope.
Julian?
Sorry, just trying to remind myself to unmute myself. Yeah, no, I think that sums it up quite nicely. I think, yeah, if you've got a comment, or we've had a few comments come through in the chat about potential topics to cover, but by all means stick your hand up or put some comments in the chat if you've got other ideas about topics or subjects of interest, or any particular burning issues you've got in the wonderful world of data.
Yeah. And a number of people have mentioned an interest in participating in the committee. I'll follow up with those people individually. I'm sure I'll be able to get the names from the webinar. So, but if you want to contact me directly, then please do. Find me on LinkedIn or by email, which I can share at the end.
Yeah, I think also one thing that's worth just checking out is that I think that there is a generic email address for the chair role, but we're going to have to check with Mandy, because I'm not sure what that is, because I don't tend to get mail that route anyway. But that isn't. I'm sure there's a route that way, and we can publicise that and make it easier. Ed's also put his email up there to make it easier. Ashish, have you got a comment you're going to make?
Sorry, no comment. I'm not very familiar with Zoom. I'm usually on Teams, but is there a way of finding out what is the demographic or where the constituents are based and what industries they represent, something like that, to kind of get a better idea of what kind of topics can come forward?
Yes, so because of GDPR, we don't have direct access to member information. But if we have a specific question that we want answering, then BCS member groups will, the admin team, they can try and provide answers to that. So if we ask for a report, for example, of members by geographic breakdown, we would get region by region how many members we've got in each area. But we also have quite a few where they either haven't expressed a view of, so it's not clear where they're based, but also we've actually got a number who are based overseas. So for the last few of our virtual conferences, we've had a number of fairly regular attenders from Nigeria, for example, and they've been very interested. They've raised some very good, pertinent questions. And so that's one of the reminders for us, is that our reach is far wider than what was historically the case, which was people who came to London.
Sure. That's fine, thank you.
Understanding industry sectors that people are based in, that is far more challenging, because absolutely, that data isn't really captured. And if you're like me, I dip into many different areas and many different things. So actually understanding what's my current area of interest, it changes, not quite like the weather, but it varies over time, quite definitely.
Sure, thank you.
The wider story for the BCS is that they've been trying to do a lot to increase membership, and have changed some of the way they're bringing new people on board, particularly new starters in the industry, which has been very encouraging. Part of my handover, I suppose, with Julian will be to try and dig into the membership a little bit more and find out what what the demographics are, like you're saying, where we can, but also, you know, how that's been changing over the last few years, and see what we can do to encourage people to join. It's the growing topic, so you know we should be seeing increased interest in the topics that we have.
Yeah, I think one of the things also to remember is that for the events that we run, they're also a shop window of the kind of things that BCS does. So if that helps people who maybe are not yet a member realize that actually there could be some value in becoming a member, then actually it's also a very good way of marketing our wares so people understand that. So yeah. Another comment from Laser who's going now about preferring hybrid events. So yeah, I think hybrid does present a challenge because you've actually got somebody who actually really has got a passion for making it work, and you've got the right technology for making it work. And I've not yet come across some successful hybrid meetings where both the people online and the people in the room have got an equal level of participation. It typically ends up either being a virtual event that has a few people in a room, or a physical event that has a few people online. But getting a happy marriage between the two is not always an easy one. I'm not yet aware of any particular ways that can be done. So I think you're on mute, Ed.
Yeah, I agree. I think for committee meetings, it might work because we've got a smaller number of people, and you know, 4 or 5 people in one room and 3 people online might work. So we could try that. But yeah, and thanks for the suggestion as well of the topic, open source.
Yeah, I'm David Gradwell. I'd very much like to see more face-to-face in the room meetings. I think they're best for communication.
They definitely are. It's a question of where people are physically, isn't it? Because I
understand that.
Yeah. So, but yeah, if the option is there for a face-to-face and people are in the vicinity, it's much better. Yeah.
I think this is one of the sort of post-COVID. This is one of the evolutions of the BCS, because in the past, both branches, which are the geographically based groups, and specialist groups tended generally to run physical meetings wherever was appropriate. And for specialist groups, that was very often London.
Yeah.
Now that we're coming out of the COVID world, I think there is a view that potentially branches are there to provide the face-to-face contact, because it's people that you know in your locality, but specialist groups maybe are more focused on it being a virtual environment to get that reach, particularly for people overseas, or even maybe not overseas, but somebody is in Aberdeen, for example. Aberdeen to London can seem like a long way away, even though we're notionally in the same country. And so
especially when the trains are on strike, yes.
Yeah, indeed. And flying down, yes, it's a physical option, but actually it's not viable for a single meeting for a speaker. I don't think people would just fly down for one sort of evening presentation. So yeah, it's about trying to get the balance right. And I think I do take your point, David, and I think it's something to explore looking forward.
Are you a member of a regional group, David?
Reading.
Okay. Are they quite active in the physical space?
They have meetings from time to time, and I go to the occasional one. Yeah.
I mean, tapping into the regional committees and providing data content for those should be an interesting option, I think.
Yeah, good. Just conscious of time and that it's lunchtime for most people. Any closing comments from you, Ed, or any closing questions from people at all who are attending?
No, well, I always say no and then go on. So yeah, yes. Thanks very much, Julian, and thanks very much for everybody attending. It's good to see so much interest, and we'll make sure that one of my objectives will be to try and make us more open and more communicative with the wider group, and not just the committee, as we go forward. So please test me on that, contact me, join LinkedIn, follow our LinkedIn page, and come along when you've got ideas and where you want to see topics of interest.